Hey, everybody, Michael Rosso, Film Photography Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about movie making on film. And the first bit we're going to see is a film shot by Joseph Brunjes on his Keystone A9 Criterion 16 millimeter camera using FPP Sonic 25 ISO black and white negative. So before we start the podcast, let's take a look at the reel that Joseph shot, which I called, by the way, Joseph shot it and I edited and did the sound design. For folks listening who don't have the visuals, you could go over to YouTube, Film Photography Podcast on YouTube, and look up the Keystone A9 Criterion camera to see this reel. Or because I did a sound mix, it's called Brunjes Barnyard. You could just close your eyes and just imagine what the pictures look like. No, I'm not kidding. So here we go. Let's roll it. And when we come back, we're going to be joined by Owen McCafferty, fellow FPP, blogger, film shooter, movie film shooter, and large format film shooter Joseph Brunjes turned filmmaker. Hey, we're back. My name is Michael Rosso, and I'm joined today by fellow film shooter and movie film super enthusiast Owen McCafferty. Hi, Owen.
Hello, what's happening?
And no stranger to the FPP, large format wet plate shooter Joseph Brunjes, who I now call the cinematographer Joseph Brunjes because Joseph Joby has been shooting movie film, and we just saw a reel that Joseph shot with his Keystone A9 Criterion 16 millimeter camera on FPP Sonic 25 negative film. I called it. It's a bit of a collaboration, Joby, because Joby shot it specifically as a test for the FPP, sent it to the FPP, and then I got my hands on it, and I cut it up a little bit, but not too much, and of course did one of my famous bombastic sound mixes.
That's right. That's right. It was
I have
pretty
to
awesome.
say that the part where they're like the kids are singing, like I don't know what they're singing, Farmer in the Dell or
Yeah.
something. It's very like Children of the Corn. It's very creepy. I didn't like the singing.
And for folks watching or listening, the BBC Sound Library went online a few years ago. So if you Google search BBC Sound Library, there is a library. There is a library of sound
An archive.
that you can use for non-commercial reasons. Almost all of the sound effects came from the Brunjes Barnyard video, including that song of children singing. So
I especially like the horse clip-clopping for the goat sound. That was
Yeah.
you're the second person to say that, and thank you for
and the smooch. The smooch was really good too. The horse smooching was
Well,
excellent.
I when I'm editing, I really do. I'll take a reel of film and I'll challenge myself. And some folks agree with this method, some don't. John Fideli does not. That's him and I notoriously fight in the edit room, but that's why we don't edit together anymore. I say, okay, I'm going to go home tonight. I'm going to edit this reel, and I'm going to be done by 10 p.m. So the challenge is short period of time, get it done. So, I listen to the clip clop cop sounds, and I'm like, it says horse. Is anyone really going to know? So, Joby, as a large format film shooter and a still photographer, a fine art still photographer, what caught your fancy? How did you make the transition into shooting movies on film?
Well, I have to actually thank you for that because I came to visit last March for the little FPP meetup, and you had your A12 Criterion Keystone 60 millimeter camera that you were shooting outside. And I just thought that was the neatest thing. I'd seen them, just in my memory from a long time ago, but it never really caught me as being interesting. I had considered Super 8 a long time ago, and I just didn't like the results I saw. I just didn't think they were the cost of trying to, and the difficulty of trying to find a working camera on eBay was also kind of, cramping my interest on it. But then I saw you with this this cucumber camera, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. It had that sound. I think there's something really sexy about the sound that it makes. And so I just went after that visit, I went on eBay and started looking, and I found an A12 and for a decent price. And so I bought it. And of course, when I got it here, I open it up and I go, uh-oh, there's something wrong. So immediately, I'm like emailing Mike and I go, Mike, is this single perf or double perf? And it turned out that it was, because it was the non-Criterion edition, it's actually a double perf camera. And I went, oh no, can you still get film for this? And of course, Mike's like, yes, you can. Yeah, I shot a couple rolls of that and really, really enjoyed it. But of course, I was like, I got to get a single perf. So I ended up looking for, an A12 that was Criterion, but I stumbled upon an A9, and an A9 is basically the A12 without the turret. And
Okay.
so if you can stand to have a one lens on your camera, the A9 is a cheaper option. The only thing is that it doesn't have frame lines for wide angle. It has normal and telephoto, but it does not have frame lines for wide angle. They're virtually the same camera. They almost have the same instructions. I've got them both here. You can see, one's got the turret and one does not.
When you say turret, it means you could actually you could put two lenses on it.
Yes. This one just has a blank spot. Another lens could go here, but when you switch lenses, you can change, and it changes the viewfinder so that you can have a wide angle up the telephoto.
Right.
Which is kind of nice.
And I know with a lot of the Kodak 16 millimeter cameras, you can easily modify the double perf cameras to be single perf. I don't know if that's true for the Keystones, but I know it's true for the Kodaks.
This is what I hear. Is this true? Owen?
Yes.
Like how, and when you say modify, I'm only thinking of myself as a filmmaker that I don't.
Well, I can't speak to other cameras, but like the Kodak Model B and the Kodak Model K, which are pretty inexpensive cameras that you can find on eBay, those anybody with like a pair of needle nose pliers and a file, a metal file, can do that modification in under 10 minutes.
Right.
It's stupid easy.
And folks,
And then you can run double perf and single perf film in your
right.
camera.
And folks, right now we're talking about 16 millimeter movie making.
And you're just grinding down the second sprockets, or
Exactly. And if the camera has sometimes like the Kodaks have a double claw, so then you literally just take your needle nose pliers and snip off the one claw, and that's it. And the camera works perfectly fine.
Right.
You know, obviously to a collector, that's probably not, you know, the most ideal thing, but if you're buying these to shoot, then, you know, who cares?
Yeah. Yeah. And Joby, when you started buying 16 millimeter cameras, because now you have a few, was expense something you were concerned about?
well, that was the thing. The cost of the film itself and processing is a little cost prohibitive. But what I found was that just like shooting film over digital, is that I didn't go out and shoot 300 feet, in 5 minutes. I wanted to. It causes you to take time, frame something up, shoot only what you think is important. So the cost kind of balances out. I mean, the cameras themselves are really not very expensive. I mean, I haven't paid over $100 for anything.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Like what?
I
Because people, I think, have something in their mind thinking that shooting 16 millimeter is prohibitively expensive.
the gear certainly isn't. I mean, I paid $30 for this.
Right.
I paid I think about $60 or $70 for my A12, because it had 2 lenses on it. So I kind of bought it for the lenses.
And you bought all of these on eBay?
I did. Well, my most recent acquisition, the one I've just been playing with a lot lately, is the Filmo 75.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous.
So thin. Look how thin it is.
Oh, I know, it's crazy thin compared to the Keystone. I mean, look at that.
It's the Virginia Slims of 16 millimeter photography. Look at that.
Funny. It's funny you mentioned that, because it was marketed towards women, because it's only 3.5 pounds. It'll fit in your pocket. It's 3.5 pounds, and you can operate it with one hand, because you can get your hand all the way around it, which is nice because you can actually hold it up. And what's nice about that for me is that this lens, it came with, I think, 4 different types of lenses. This is probably the cheapest of the lenses you could have on it. So its maximum aperture is only 3.5, and its smallest is only 16. So trying to shoot something, modern films in it is a little more difficult. But if I do this, I can hold up a neutral density filter in front of it with the other hand, and still be able to shoot outside with a relatively fast film, which is kind of nice.
Right.
Always recommend writing on your cameras what you've got in there.
I think that it's very important, the fact that you have like a little piece of tape, a cheat sheet on it, as I call, because frequently, almost always, when I shoot, I put a little piece of tape. I mean, if you're not familiar with the shutter speed of your camera, write it on there. That's what I do on the bottom. Like, 1/30th of a second. 1/58th of a second, whatever it might be. Which Joby and I were talking yesterday on the telephone about shutter speeds, which, and there's so many new, of all the emails I field all week long here at the Film Photography Project, 90%, not maybe higher, are people brand new to movie making on film. Brand new. That means they know nothing. And quite frankly, I'm thrilled and surprised that they're picking it up so fast. Like, it's, they're doing a good job considering they know nothing, which is, Joe, we discussed the fact that if you change the frame rate of shooting 16 frames per second or 24 frames per second, that alters your shutter speed.
Right.
Yeah. And that, of course, will alter your meter reading.
Mhm.
So in a light meter, you dial in your shutter speed and the ISO of your film, and that will give you the f-stop. And that's a good question, Joby. How did you meter or determine your f-stop when shooting?
Well, I use just a little handheld meter, a little flashmate, Staconic. And it's nice and small, it fits in my pocket, and I can just whip it out and do an incident real quick and then kind of go from there. I didn't actually realize that at first, that because I remember I was shooting outside with 16 frames per second, didn't realize, if I need more speed, I can just go up to 24 and cut the light down with that. I had no idea. And Keystone has really odd frame, shutter speeds, like 16 frames per second is 1/36th of a second, 24 is 1/54th. I mean,
right.
But obviously that little light meter can't do that, but I just 1/50th, 1/30th. You're good to go.
Fine. Yeah.
It takes a real while to figure this out, and a lot of this applies to 16 millimeter filmmaking, and to some extent regular 8 or double 8 filmmaking, because the cameras are very similar in a sense. John Fideli called me last year. Notoriously, always, John will be on some beautiful vacation on some gorgeous beach, and he'll just call. He's like, "I'm on the beach," and I just, like, there was just too much light, too much.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm gonna shoot this at 24 frames per second because that'll give him an extra stop. So faster the film goes through the camera gate, the less light. I mean, it's all math, right, Joby?
Right.
Oh yeah, and I did a little high speed. It was at 64 frames per second.
Right.
And I didn't compensate.
That'll eat your film.
I didn't compensate for that at all, but the leeway of the film, the ability of the film to be overexposed and underexposed saved that little clip that I made out of it. So my daughter was with some of her friends at a pool, and they were all jumping in the pool at the same time. So I put it at 64 and let them drift in, which is kind of cool.
Folks listening and watching, Owen and I talk about it constantly, which is movie making shouldn't be so expensive. And, Kodak and their Super 8 cartridges, especially the new Kodak Super 8 Ektachrome.
Oh, so expensive.
It costs too much.
It does. Especially compared to the fact that you can pick up a roll of 36 exposure 35 millimeter for I don't know, under $13.
Yeah. And if it was cheaper, and when I say cheaper, I mean like, $5 or $10 cheaper, people would shoot a lot more. And that's the philosophy of our whole project the last 2 years, of bringing back movie film, double perf 16 or double 8 for regular 8 cameras, which is got to get the cost down. Got to get the cost down. Got to get the cost down.
And the film that Joseph shot, the Sonic film, is by far one of the most affordable 16 millimeter films out there.
Yeah. The Sonic film, it's a sound recording film not intended for shooting in a camera. And at the Film Photography Project, you can buy it on 16 millimeter, or you could buy it 35 millimeter for your still camera. Joby, what were your thoughts on the look of that film? And by the way, that roll you shot, no kidding, is the best looking roll I've seen so far. The conditions were just right, in a sense that subjects need a lot of light on them. And you can tell when the horses were in the barn. In one shot, the barn was very dark, and then later on, you went back to the barn, and there was a lot more light behind the horses, and they popped very nicely. So, what were your thoughts on and was this the first time you were shooting Sonic film?
Yeah, it was the first and only roll I've shot of Sonic, and I liked it. I liked the results quite a bit. When you said sound film, I'll go, what could this possibly look like? I mean, but the results are really great. The gate on my A9 needs to be cleaned.
Oh yes.
As you'll see in it, it looks like something scratched the film a little bit.
It's not a hair. There was like a thing.
Oh yeah, the one of the last rolls, I think, from the other camera, the A12. It looked like a monster was growing from the edge, and it just kept coming.
Kind of looked like while you were loading, you were eating like a Hershey Kiss, and that little piece
No
of
crumbs.
paper,
No crumbs.
that little piece of paper that's in a Hershey Kiss, looks like it dropped into your gate.
It was pretty spectacular. I think
Right over here was
one of the last rolls I sent you, your technician said the most epic hair in a gate that he had ever seen in his life, or something like that.
Yes.
And I mean, it cut out, like if this is a screen, it was this far into the screen.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I've subsequently, used an air compressor and blown them out. So I'm hoping, future rolls will not have that problem.
And it's the Sonic film. What I really like about it, number one, is that it has almost no grain. So it's super sharp. It's super clear. And it's orthochromatic film, which if somebody's out there trying, they're watching old Chaplin films or Buster Keaton films, and they're like, God, I'd really love to do a short silent film in the style of the teens or the 20s. They were using, many of them were shooting orthochromatic film, and it kind of gives you that look of film from that era, especially if you have somebody in makeup, which is because it's an orthochromatic film, they used to wear heavy makeup. And if you want to do a project like that, and I know a lot of people out there like to do it, it's the perfect film for that kind of look, because it just has that classic motion picture, film look from, the heydays before talkies.
I think that's why I'm just drawn to the whole, 16 millimeter film in general. It's got more resolution than 8. 35 is way out of my price range, and the weight and everything. That's the other reason I like these Keystone cameras in this little Filmo, is that the size is not so hefty that I can't walk around with this all day and take pictures. And because I was looking at you have a Bolex mic and things like that. The size of those to me just kind of were a bit of a turnoff. But then that day you had that that A12. I went, wow, that's a tiny little thing. I could shoot with that.
Yeah, I love the A12.
And then that sound. I mean, the sound these cameras make are just so cool. I mean, the Filmo,
yeah,
and just the looks people give you. I mean, it's fun to just talk to people about what the heck you're doing, and just the results give me that old timey look that people kind of are nostalgic for these days. Digital is so clean and clear and everything that to get to see little bits of grime and dirt and the black and white, the orthochromatic look, especially with skin tones and things, it just gives such a classic look that it's very appealing.
And you can get Sonic film as a black and white negative, which is 25 ISO, and as a reversal, which is 12 ISO. And if you're like me and you mostly project, I don't really shoot negative film at all. But when you project that Sonic film on a big screen in 16 millimeter, we do it in the backyard all the time. It's like being at the movies. It's just the coolest thing ever. It really is.
I think I shot that roll at 25 per negative, because I don't think I'll ever have a projector. So I'm kind of a hybrid, shooter, where I shoot the film and then get the scans.
I know that there's a huge audience for projection, but much to Owen's disappointment, the FPP isn't it. No, I mean, based upon I see. First of all, thank you anyone out there listening to this or watching this that has used Film Photography Project, developed scan services. I mean, we're on a second year, and we jump started it for corporate reasons, for corporate libraries and content, and it made perfect sense to make these services available to consumers, to people who just want to shoot home movies. And the reaction has been overwhelming. And I'm so grateful and astonished, and I complain often to Owen, of just how much film is coming in.
Mm-hmm.
As Jerry Seinfeld would say, who was shooting this film?
If you do buy film from the FPP and project it, leave a comment below about how you project it, so we can get Mike on the bandwagon.
That's right.
Right. I had my finger on a button to get a 60 millimeter Bell and Howell projector. They look like
don't do it.
Oh
no. But it depends on the model. 60 millimeter projectors that Bell and Howell made, especially in the 1960s and into the 1970s, have a chronic problem with the worm gear.
Oh,
It cracks and it has to be replaced. And I can tell you from having to replace my own that it's just not worth it. If you're buying an older model, you know, if it doesn't have sound, you're buying an older model, you're probably okay. But I would, yeah, I mean, the best, in my opinion, the best 60 millimeter projector, if you're interested in doing that, to start off with, if you want sound, I would look for a Kodak Pageant. Look for one that's solid state, not one that has vacuum tubes in it. Or you can look at the Kodascope Royal, which is a great one, the Kodascope Analyst, which is a great one. But I would stay away from Bell & Howell sound 60 millimeter projectors that were made in the 60s and 70s for sure.
and of course, Joby, once you buy a 16 millimeter projector, it opens up an amazing world of going on eBay and seeing how many feature films, short subject sound films, TV episodes are available. That, I mean, you could have your own drive-in, and you seem to have the space up there.
Yes. Yeah.
So you can maybe put a big screen on the side of the barn, or paint the barn white, and maybe project.
Funny you mentioned that, because the drive-in movie theater as a genre is coming back.
It is.
Because of all this COVID stuff. The Winston-Salem has a huge fairgrounds for the fair they do every year, and they've turned it into a giant movie theater, and it's just hugely successful. I mean, digital, it's so temporary. That's the other nice thing about shooting on film, both still and projection. I mean, moving pictures, is that I know it's going to be around. I know that, in 20 years' time, you could rescan it, the film itself isn't going to degrade for, 50, 100 years before you really, especially if it's kept in climate control storage and all that. So, my relatives will be able to watch all these little silly movies that I've made, and they'll be around, as opposed to where a digital, film on my phone is just going to, as soon as the phone breaks, dies, battery dies, it's gone.
Yeah, it's a big topic of how much data is lost when people get new phones, if they don't get the data transferred. Are people losing memories because they're not just managing their data?
Right. And not printing anything.
It's its own topic, really. So now, Joby, do you own any regular 8 millimeter cameras?
I do. I unfortunately don't have it right here. I have a Keystone, what is it? K35, I think it is.
Is it another cucumber?
No, it's a rectangle. It's a rectangle.
K35.
I got that just because it was the exact same color as my A9. That this kind of light brown,
right?
And so they were kind of partners in crime, like big brother, little brother. And it came with only one lens, which was kind of crappy. So I went on and eBay, and I bought. This is the secret about buying lenses for regular 8, is you go out and you buy a turret camera for nothing, especially ones that are magazine, 8 millimeter magazine, that are basically useless these days.
Sorry.
Am I wrong?
Well, we're working on it.
Oh, sweet. Okay, well, I've still got the camera, but I bought a turret Keystone camera that had 3 lenses on it. A wide, a normal, and a tele, all pretty wide apertures, and for $25 or $30. I convinced the person that was selling it that it was worthless. So they let me make an offer, and I bought it for less than they were asking. And I use those lenses all the time. So the regular 8's been fun. The hardest thing for me is that my fingertip, getting my fingers are just wide enough where I can't get my finger in. And so the regular 8 spools being so small, trying to fidget like this mid-roll out in the sun, and I'm just going, oh, how many feet am I killing trying to get this done? So I try to I try to shoot half a roll outside, and then I'll go inside and flip it.
So you shot a roll in your K35?
Oh yeah, I've shot 3 or 4.
Okay.
3 or 4. Yeah, it's great. I really enjoyed the results I got from it, because you don't have to, for being a large format photographer, I'm always thinking about depth of field. And I always forget that these things are so small that they have such a huge amount of depth of field that I could set. I mean, the 8mm doesn't even have focus. You just set the depth of field, and it's based on feet away from you. And the 16mm, I would always forget. I mean, with this, I have a Canon lens here, and I was always trying to get the feet exactly right, and then not realizing that if I stop down to f/22, anything from 2 feet, to infinity is in focus. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it for that because the K35 is so small. It literally is a pocket camera. It's probably not as small as the ones you've been showing on your videos.
Right.
But I decided brand loyalty was going to be I was going to be a collector of Keystone.
Fair enough.
So I thought, well, I really enjoy my 16, so I'll try a regular 8, and it's been fun. So I've had a good time with it, and it's so much less expensive to tinker around with too. So if someone's, 16's a little too expensive for someone, the regular 8 is such a great deal. I mean, it beats. I think it's easily. I mean, the image quality seems better than Super 8. I don't know. Is that just because the cartridge, as opposed to the gate? The gate the film's going through is a tighter.
It's a Sam Sherman topic. Owen, what did Sam have to say? Do you recall?
Sam Sherman, who everybody knows as being a prolific cinematographer and archivist and historian and a million other things. But he does not shoot Super 8. He's never shot it because he feels that the problem with Super 8 is that the pressure plate, which if you could call it that, is inside the cartridge. There's a little tin spring in there that it's supposed to keep the film flat against the plane as it's going through the camera, and that's in the cartridge, and sometimes it's not as reliable. So with most 8mm cameras, the shutter gate or the film gate is built into the camera. So you do tend to get a much flatter film plane, which is going to give you a more stable image, and that could definitely affect your image quality.
All of the Super 8 cameras I have, the lens that comes with the camera is your lens. That's all you get.
Yeah.
Whereas with regular 8 or 16, your D mount lens and your C mount lenses, you could just go shopping on eBay on any given evening and buy some more lenses. And like you, Joby, I've always found that buying the lenses individually on eBay is much more expensive than finding some sad camera that comes with all of the lenses.
It's like a rear lens cap.
Right.
And speaking of that, the regular 8 lenses, I know everyone has a bunch of these, caps for film caps around. The regular 8 lenses fit as a rear lens cap for this. You can just plug them right in and they stick.
Never thought of that.
So
what is that?
It's just the black cap on a 35mm canister.
Never knew that.
It has a little hole there, and the hole is exactly the same size as the back of your regular 8 lens. So you just plug it in.
Mike's going to start selling those on the store for $8 a pop.
So we covered a few topics. We saw an amazing 16mm film that you shot. Congratulations. I thought it was awesome.
Thank you.
And I'd like to do this often. And this is all predicated upon folks watching and listening of giving us feedback. Is this something you'd like to see? More chitter chatter, geeky chat about, home movie film cameras. It's a niche within a niche. It's certainly much smaller than, when we're talking about film photography and still photography. I hate to think, and I don't want to isolate folks who are shooting stills, because I see my little movie cameras as basically still cameras that are shooting 16 frames per second. You could pull wonderful stills, especially from your 16 cameras, and especially from the Sonic film, because the grain is so fine. But I certainly would like to hear from everyone, and you could write us at podcast@filmphotographyproject.com. And if I can't answer the question, I will forward it along to either Owen. Well, we'll come back another time. So many things to talk about, like collecting vintage commercials on 16 millimeter, magazines. Like, what is a 8 millimeter or 16 millimeter magazine? Maybe we'll do a magazine show. And of course, I don't know, maybe we can get Sam Sherman on the visuals.
That would be crazy.
It would
That
be crazy. And let's leave it on that for today, because we could talk for hours.
Right. We could.
Yeah.
We could make this a 24-hour podcast.
Live
We
stream.
would never run out of topics.
Nope.
Nope.
I used to joke. My daughter does all these Zoom things, and occasionally, like the people, there's a list of people on the screen, and some people's picture will go black, and we always assume that's because someone had to go use the bathroom. So
Yeah.
it's like bathroom black.
Right.
So I told my daughter to like go and take a picture with her phone, a picture of the toilet, and let that be the picture that comes up when she turns the screen off. So it's really obvious what's going on.
Well, folks, it's time to go. And maybe I'll do one of my famous dizzying exits. And that goes like this. That's how you may feel after shooting movie film for the first time. But don't. You'll get used to it. So write to us. Leave comments below. Ring that bell. Subscribe. Hit that button. And we'll see you next time.